Imagine it's the mid-1930s. You're sitting at a dinner table in the Kremlin. The wine is vintage, the food is exquisite, and Joseph Stalin, the man they call the boss, is laughing and telling a joke. You're laughing too. You have to. If you don't laugh hard enough, or if you look a little too worried, that could be the last thing you ever do. You aren't really a guest, you're a prisoner, just like everyone else in that room. You're trapped in a world where one wrong look, one misplaced word, or one hesitant smile can end your life. But before he was the boss, he was just a boy from the mountains of Georgia. His childhood was not a normal one. He grew up in a world of harsh poverty and brutal physical violence. His father was a cobbler with a volatile temper, and young Stalin, then called Soso, spent his early years dodging blows and learning that the world was a place where the strong crushed the weak. He was a small, sickly boy who was often bullied. But instead of breaking, he hardened. He learned to hide his feelings behind a mask of indifference. He developed a deep-seated, simmering resentment against anyone who had more than him or treated him as an inferior. That childhood of physical fear and emotional neglect didn't just shape him. It turned his heart into stone. He learned early on that you don't fight back by shouting. You fight back by waiting, watching, and striking when the other person is least expecting it. To really understand the man he became, you have to throw away the history books that just list dates and wars. He wasn't like those loud, attention-seeking dictators who love the stage. He was the guy in the corner. He was the quiet one. While his rivals were busy bragging, shouting, and fighting for the spotlight, Stalin was just watching. He understood a secret that most people never learn. He who talks the least knows the most. He didn't need to force people to do what he wanted. He just listened. By being the quiet, reasonable guy, he learned everyone's deepest secrets. He knew exactly where they were weak. He let them dig their own graves, and he was patient enough to wait until they were deep enough to bury them. Think about what it was like for the average person living under his rule. It wasn't just a government. It was an atmosphere you couldn't escape. It was like living in a house where the walls had ears and the floorboards were watching you. People lived in a state of mutual suspicion. If you knew your neighbor might sell you out to the secret police to save their own skin, you had to report them first. Families were torn apart. Children were encouraged to inform on their parents at school. There was no such thing as a private life because in Stalin's Russia, privacy was just another word for conspiracy. You walked on eggshells every single day, keeping your head down, your voice low, and your true thoughts buried deep where no one could find them. And then there was the midnight call. This was Stalin's favorite way to break people. He was a night owl, and he knew that nothing breaks a person's nerves like being woken up at 3 a.m. If you were one of his top guys, the phone ringing in the middle of the night was the ultimate nightmare. You'd pick up, heart pounding, not knowing if he was calling to chat, to promote you, or to tell you that the police were already at your door. He used that uncertainty to turn everyone around him into an exhausted, terrified shell of a person. He didn't just want subordinates. He wanted people who were too tired and too scared to ever think for themselves. And for those who didn't get a public show trial, there was the Gulag. It wasn't just a prison. It was a factory for death. Millions of people teachers, scientists, farmers, even people who had just told the wrong joke in a tavern were shipped into the frozen heart of Siberia. The strategy was simple. Exhaust the body until the mind breaks. They were worked to the bone in sub-zero temperatures with barely any food. Stalin knew that if he kept them alive just long enough to suffer, it sent a message to the rest of the country that was louder than any newspaper headline. The Gulag was his way of ensuring that the fear didn't stop at the prison gate. It followed you into your dreams. But his cruelty didn't stop with the person he targeted. It extended to their entire bloodline. He created a specific, chilling label for the wives of those he declared traitors. They were rounded up and sent to their own special camps, often forced to leave their children behind in state orphanages. In those orphanages, their names were changed so they would grow up completely forgetting who their parents ever were. He understood that a man's greatest vulnerability isn't his own life. It's the safety of the people he loves. By holding their wives and children hostage in the Gulag system, Stalin guaranteed that even those who were still free would be too terrified to breathe a word against him. It was a systematic, clinical destruction of the family unit, ensuring that his power didn't just reach into your office or your home, it reached directly into your heart. Think about how this affected the leaders of other countries who had to deal with him. They were playing a high-stakes game of poker with a man who wasn't just holding his cards close. He was playing by rules they couldn't even perceive. Churchill and Roosevelt saw the man of steel, a partner against a greater evil, but they were deeply unsettled by him. They couldn't understand how a man could sit across from them, shake their hand with a soft, practiced warmth, and then return home to order the death of thousands of his own people before breakfast. It's that gap between the man they met and the monster they read about that defined how the world feared him. When he wanted to finish someone off, he didn't just shoot them. He used show trials. He would take a powerful, proud person and force them to stand in front of the whole world and lie. He made them admit to things they never did, crying and begging for their own death as a final service to the country. It was pure psychological destruction. He didn't just want them dead. He wanted to make sure they knew they were nothing before they died. He stripped away their sleep, their dignity, and their sense of reality until they were just puppets, begging for their own execution. Now, if you took Stalin to a modern psychologist, they wouldn't call him crazy. Crazy is messy, and Stalin was terrifyingly organized, but they would point out two major things that made him dangerous. First, his alarm bell was stuck in the on position. Most people have a gut feeling when someone is acting fishy. Stalin lived in a world where that feeling never went away. He couldn't trust anyone, ever. To him, every single person was a potential assassin. If he felt even a tiny flicker of doubt about you, he couldn't let it go. He had to remove you. He didn't have a way to just chill out. Second, he looked at people like chess pieces. He didn't have the emotional wiring that makes us care about other people. A person's value was exactly like a pawn on a board, useful if it helped his plan, and trash the second it didn't. He didn't see people as humans with lives. He saw them as tools. He was a man who lived in his own head, where he was the only real person, and everyone else was just something to move or break. In the end, that way of thinking became his own prison. Stalin died alone. He had built a world so terrifying that when he finally fell, his own guards were too scared to go into his room to help him. He built a system that ran on fear, and in the end, that system locked him away from everyone else. Looking at Stalin isn't just about reading history. It's a warning. It's a reminder of what happens when a person without a shred of empathy gets the power to treat human beings like machines. It shows you that when you strip away humanity for the sake of power, you don't just destroy the world around you. You end up completely and utterly alone. I'm Dark Throne Minds. Every week we go inside the minds of history's most powerful, most dangerous, and most psychologically fascinating figures. Subscribe, turn on notifications. The history books left out the best parts. We'll find them.